Welcome to another episode of the Heron Outlet. I am Ian Hess. She is Alex Winley. And we're smiling to start, but not a lot of smiles to go around. Definitely a difficult week for Inter Miami and what they're dealing with on the forefront. Another, challenging loss to Houston Dynamo, 3-1. And let's just start right there, Alex. Let's just get right into it. You never really want to see a performance like that, one where you feel like you're on the front foot, you feel like you're a team that is competing in the match but is never able to break through. Let's just start with that and how you feel about it. A penalty on both sides, so that sort of negates either one. So when you look at it, at least from my perspective, I just see a team that lost the game, a team that was able to compete, a team that should have competed and did not. So let's just start there.
Yeah, I think Miami it's giving like last season where a lot of the times they would go down a goal and shrug their shoulders and get disjointed. That's exactly what happened in this game. For the first half they did look good. I mean, they passed the eye test, but their XG number was below the Dynamo. So while they were shooting, they weren't getting good chances, and ultimately that you know them not getting enough good chances saw the Dynamo just take advantage of a pretty emotionally fragile Inter Miami side. Yeah, it's just a crazy way to lose, honestly, because it looked like they were going to win, but they just lost control of the game, and it's a reoccurring issue that this team has had. And against the Dynamo, I was like the perfect game to the perfect game that happened to. It was like typical Inter Miami game. They look good one moment, and then it doesn't go well for them. So yeah, it's just tough to watch at this point, and because the guys do want to win, but it's just not good enough, honestly.
Let's talk like sheer numbers right off the bat. 22 shots compared to 11 for Houston. I know that number looks disparaging in terms of like what Inter Miami should have been able to do, but they didn't seem to be good opportunities. They didn't seem to be opportunities that you would want to have. It was very beyond the box, very rotational, very outside of high scoring areas. What did you see from that? It almost seemed like they were hoping for a sheer volume to be able to create opportunity instead of a quality opportunity or two that would have made a good chance possible.
Yeah, and Neville touched on it during his pregame conference today. They were sort of rushing it because the team's so desperate to win. They weren't really looking for the angles in the final third. They had these long range shots that probably weren't the highest quality. I tweeted a thread about Robbie Robinson getting the ball on the far side, and instead of players rushing into the box to look for a header, he took it upon himself to just try to maneuver it onto his foot, but then he found an open Jean Mata who ended up shooting, but Steve Clark ended up saving. So it's just not really good shot selection from Miami. And Neville talked about this, how they're working on that final third play, but he did say it was difficult to coach, which it's looking pretty evident for Miami. They look completely
Can I
lost in the
interrupt
final
you?
third a lot of times.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
interrupt you on that because I was talking with Robbie after the game on Saturday night, and he had said he wasn't disappointed with that shot, the shot that they were taking. And I found that
Mm.
kind of, I don't want to say like alarming, but surprising, maybe. That doesn't seem like a high percentage shot. And so for Robbie to be comfortable with it on the corner of the box, like what they were doing, right? Like that in cut that they were in the top of the box, they were gonna take it from there and see if they could hook it in. I didn't see that as working, he had a different perspective, and he knows better than me, right? Like he knows better than any of us.
Yeah.
So what am I missing in disagreeing with him? What do you see that you think that might be productive, or do you not think that that's productive?
No. At this point, Miami needs to be looking for better chances. Yeah, no, I think he mentioned during the post game as well that if he would have made a couple of those chances, we wouldn't have been having this discussion, which is true. But it's just Miami don't play aesthetically pleasing football, and well, there are moments in the first half where they did. It's just never consistent enough or tactically good enough for them to make consistent chances. I think there's a this tweet from American Soccer Analysis that says Miami had historically low shot conversion percentage. Even lower than FC Cincinnati going back to 2020. Yeah, going back to 2020. Let me see if I can find that. But yeah, it's not that. Yeah, here it is. That's 1.4% goal conversion rate. That's the worst in MLS history, with 4.3 in 2020 by FC Cincinnati. Miami's opponents, they have a 22.2% scoring rate. So yeah, they're just not. They're not. They're not putting in their chances basically, and Neville talks about them, trying to be a bit more ruthless in front of goal, but I don't think they're tactically set up in a way for those consistent chances to come, nor do they have a playmaker that can create those consistent chances for them to, you know, get finish their goals. So yeah, it's just looking pretty. It's pretty dire at the moment. They're not scoring, they're letting up goals, and they have a chance against the Revs to fix that. But you know, um, Robbie in a sense is right that they need to finish, but at the same time, they need to get into better scoring positions so they're not taking these statistically low long shots.
Right. And Alex, I don't want to like belabor the point, but the idea of 22 shots to 11 shots and you lose 3-1, right?
Mm.
34 shot creating actions compared to 18 from Houston, almost double. They were on the front foot. They just weren't able to convert in the final third. In that deciding factor, it did not wind up happening. And I think that it's like a very important topic to discuss, because we can lament the back four all we want, and what their performance was. We can say, oh, Gregory didn't have his best game, oh, John Mota and Robert Taylor, like they're too high up, they need to come back a little bit more, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But up top, it needed the most, and it didn't have it. So, how do you respond to that if that doesn't exist?
That's a good question. At this point, Miami just need to figure it out. It's attacking wise, they're not getting it done. Defensively, they're not. It's I'll say it again. Neville talked about working on attacking third final play, which is he said it was difficult to coach,
Right.
which to an extent is difficult to coach. But I don't think we can use the it's a new team, they're gelling excuse anymore. Even Nick Marsman said it this afternoon that it's more than enough time for them to get to know each other and to start scoring. So that's what they need to do basically.
Okay. So, like, do you feel confident with the roles that each like person has going forward, or is there a shuffling of the deck that needs to happen?
Mm, you know what? When you're losing like this, I think shuffling the deck can be good. Maybe not try out different personnel in the same formation. Maybe start Campana. Maybe you can look at. I'll use Edison Escoda for an example. During Inter Miami 2, he had definitely a very lively game on as a left winger. Maybe start him on the left hand side. he's a good player. Neville came in talking about playing the youth this season, but Escona has not gotten a lot of minutes. Maybe starting Emerson Rodriguez, young, quick, tricky winger who actually has, the he wants to score basically. Maybe try Campana up top, or maybe Lassiter. Maybe bring on Egoin later. Something else. The midfield, I don't. Maybe I'd probably get a bunch of not hate, but maybe try Gregory as that deep lying defensive midfielder. I mean, excuse me, Mo Adams instead of Gregory as that deep lying defensive midfielder. Just Gregory does look a tad bit out of form. I'm sure he'll come back into it, but maybe try Mo Adams as that deep lying six, and the two eights beside him could be a John Mata or Robert Taylor or George Acosta. Just to mix it up a bit. Not necessarily saying that they're bad players, just to give the team some different personnel to see where they can latch on to some semblance of you know some semblance of just different, to see if it works at this point. So I'd keep the same formation, but different personnel would be switched in and out.
Let's talk the Mo Adams Gregory debate because I disagree with you on it, so we can have it.
Hmm.
Why, like, just state your case for why that should happen. I know that there is a lot of talk about it currently. Why do you believe that that is a good way of moving forward?
Because Mo Adams, he's more of a defensive-minded midfielder. He wins more of his tackles. Looking at his tackling percentage, it's 80% of dribblers tackled, and I'll look at Gregory's right now. It's 42%. So just based off that number alone, Mo Adams has a higher tackling percentage than Gregory. Um, at this moment in time, of course, Gregory has played in a bit more games, but even the eye test, it shows Mo Adams is probably a bit more physically. He'll throw an elbow or two to win that ball back. At this point, Miami has been torn up in the midfield um, for a lot of these games, and you know, just switching it up a bit. I'm not saying that you should drop Gregory completely, but maybe giving Mo Adams a chance to be that lone holding midfielder alongside two number eights. It could switch it up a bit. Maybe just have him screen the back line, just win balls and pass them forward. He doesn't have to worry about being an offensive type of midfielder like we've seen in, say, the Austin match where Phil Neville had him play as a box to box guy trying to make things happen. Just have him sit back, screen the defense, pass the ball forward to a Robert Taylor, John Mata, Ari Lassiter, what have you. Um, Gregory, he can do that, but these last couple games he hasn't looked sharp enough, and Miami's in a spot where they need to win now. So switching up at that number six spot could be interesting.
See, so for me, what I see with it is that I want more of stability. I want more of like an understanding of what this team wants to look like, how they're going to operate, and you don't take your captain out of that. You keep your captain in. You understand the middle of the pitch is where you're going to solidify your squad, and you don't get off the boat now. You stay and you hold serve. For better or for worse, maybe that's incorrect, but I think that Gregory has performed maybe not as well as we would have wanted him this year. Maybe not as well as he did last year, as we've talked about. But I think that it has sufficed to say that like he's been fine. It's been okay. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. And so to like get off of the understanding of what you're doing now really goes against what you've prepared for this entire season. So that's why I would stick with him. That's why I would say, you know, let let's not let's not go crazy now. Let's understand it hasn't worked so far, but let's stick with it for as long as possible. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that statement.
Yeah, what they're doing now isn't working. That's why I proposed
Okay,
just some
which is
personnel
fair,
switches.
which
I
is
mean,
fair.
yeah, we could keep Gregory on the field, maybe in a more advanced position as a number 8. You know, he could be one of the two eights, and you can move Robert Taylor to left wing. That could be a solution. You know, just tell Gregory he can get forward a bit more. Which he does have it in his locker. He can have an assist in him, so maybe that would work. But for as of right now, just that midfield needs some more muscle, needs some more. Of course, you don't drop your captain. That's the difficult part of this. You don't. You know, Gregory being benched means benching your captain. Benching your captain means that there's some, you know, it's not going well for you at the moment. So, yeah, I think that move on my part, it's purely for just a personnel switch, really. Not nothing against Gregory. It's just you need to change it up a bit, you know. And that's why I, you know, proposed maybe dropping Higuain too, just to shake it up, see what where we can, you know, where as a coach you can get that oomph from somewhere because these last couple of lineups have it's just been consistently, you know, getting at the same things, you know, defensively unstable, offensively not being able to create, offensively too slow, and you know all of that stuff that's just been plaguing this club for so long.
So let's talk the elephant in the room, Gonzalo Higuain, and everything that's happened. I wanna get to it. I went through a breakdown of a lot of his statistics from Saturday that I, I think, in my opinion, are historically bad in terms of a designated player in MLS and what they're going to do. His penalty was, in terms of expected goals, 0.79. That was all of his expected goals for the night. He had 4 shot creating actions. That was lower than Robbie, Taylor, Lassiter, and Mota. His 54% passing was lower than any starter and second worst on both Inter Miami and Houston Dynamo. 13 completed passes was worse than any starter. 1 was progressive. 18 carries was worse than any starter. 1 was progressive. Defensively, he only had 3 pressures. That was worse than any starter. 0 tackles, 0 interceptions. 20 touches in the entire attacking third was less than Taylor, Robbie, Mota, Lassiter, and even Noah Allen. He made 24 passes all game. Only 10 of those were off set pieces and 6 were off corners, so he only made 8 live ball passes. That to me is a historically poor performance. We haven't heard from Gonzalo in a while. He doesn't talk to the media very often, but I, to me, MLS is a situation where if your only designated player on the pitch is performing at that level, you don't really stand a chance. This call for Phil's head that I want to get to in a sec, I take a step back on it because, like, what are you gonna do if you get 3 designated players? They have a designation for a reason. And if your only one is performing at that level, what do you possibly do? Like, how do you make that work? And the understanding that, oh well, there's players on TAM or GAM or etc. You're dealing with sanctions as well on that. Like, I really don't understand the argument on it. We'll get to it in a sec, but you can't have your best, quote unquote, best player, the guy that you've invested in, the guy that's supposed to lead the way, you cannot have him performing that poorly and expect a good result.
True, but I think two things can be correct that one's Gonzalez underperforming, but the team's not set up in a way that can consistently create chances. And I'll defend some of the players a bit. I think these current group of players are very good, but none of them are DP level. And like you said, well, they can reach the statistics of DPs. They're all good players, but they're not the DP designation. They're all TAM, what have you players.
Correct. Yeah.
But these are really good players that could become great if they were surrounded by DPs that played a bit better. As of right now, the team has a really good core, but they could be elevated. Have you know the deep have Gonzalo play better. Have bring in another DP. But the issue is right now Miami is in a slump, and of course, the ownership said they it's a transition, the sanctions, but they still want to remain competitive. And right now, the team isn't really competitive, and I know there are shots for Phil's head, and he just needs to do better because unless soccer as a whole, it's a results business, and when you're not getting results, even if it is a project, you're going to get sacked. And next season Miami have a bit of a golden opportunity. They'll have 3 free DP spots, despite Gonzalez saying that retirement is not. Maybe he won't retire, but his contract does run
we
up.
can talk about that. Yeah,
So
that's
his
for
contract
another
does run
day.
up, but
But
yeah. So
the thing that I would say to that is when we're talking about Phil, let's go through that. He said to us, to our face at the start of the year, this is my team, these are my guys, these are my
mhm.
players. Does he hold the responsibility in your mind for the results with what has happened? If it does not work out like it hasn't been, is he supposed to be taking more responsibility?
Well, he has taken responsibility, but like he said, these are his players. He should be able to get. You need to get the best out of them. And right now, the team's not. He's not. They're not playing that well. And yes, it does. That is his responsibility to get it out of these players. Just change it up. Like like I said, maybe dropping Gregory, not maliciously, but dropping Gregory for a different personnel. Maybe dropping Higuain. You just need to try out different things. Right now, he's only really switched to formation, which is a positive. A 4-3-3 is
But
the
Alex,
most
I want to
universal.
interrupt you because those are your two quote unquote best players. That's scary to me. Like right off the bat,
Yeah,
right?
but the team they're not doing well. Like even when they start, their best players are not. They're not contributing as much. You
But
can bring them on
Phil
in the
has
second half
also
if it doesn't work.
said our best players need to play well. He has repeatedly said we need our best players to play better. And that hasn't been the case. So when you're talking about dropping your best players, that's wild to me. The
Yeah,
idea,
because they're not playing well. They're not playing well. Get someone who is maybe not as talented, but would work a bit harder, maybe take instruction a bit better. Not saying that Gardy doesn't take instruction, but this time it's sort of desperate for Miami. You got to make sort of changes like this, and if it doesn't work, just put them back in the lineup and try again. You just gotta push your way through this as a team. You can't afford to wait and see anymore. They're at a threat of going 1-6 if they lose to the Revs. So it's not pretty, but sometimes as a coach, I think you gotta take those chances. Genuinely, I genuinely I think that just try switching out personnel wise, playing some of the youth. What can hurt you? You see Inter Miami two balling out. And try to get one of those guys on loan. Who knows? It can happen.
I like the optimism. I guess I just wish that there was more stability within the club. I wish that there was a little more um, continuity and understanding of this is going to be the first team. This is going to be what they're putting forward instead of this idea of our best players are not performing to the salary that they're making, which unfortunately, this is a business, right? But
Mm,
also
yeah.
the idea of them performing to the talent that they have because at the end of the day, I really think that this team is more talented than it's produced. And
Yeah, I agree.
and we can, I know that that argument is like nauseating because it's happened for so long that no one wants to talk about it anymore, because how long can you say, oh, these guys are better than how they've performed until they've proven who they are?
Yeah.
But I still do believe in that. Like when I'm watching with my eyes, I am often befuddled by, why is this the way that it is? Because these players look better than it is. Is that a problem? As we talk about this Phil discussion that people have, I don't want to have it, but I'll engage in it, I guess, a little bit. When we have this discussion, is that an understanding of players' talent, or is that an understanding of coaching? Where is the disconnect? And help me from a tactical standpoint understand, what, if you agree with it, what I'm missing, if you disagree with it, what most of the fan base is missing.
I think it's a mixture of both right now. Like I said earlier, they're good players, but they would be even better if they had DPs that would produce around them. Right now, Miami have one underperforming DP, so of course it's not going to fall in Miami's favor. But again, tactically, some of the things that Neville has done, like play John Mata as a winger when maybe he's best centrally. He was very consistent in that Campana Higuain pairing, which just didn't work out, and he kept that through Chicago, Austin, and I believe the game after that. And he didn't really switch it, until later on. Ariel Lassiter being kept on the bench. I know people give him flack for not finishing his chances, but like Robbie, I think they were just shooting because they weren't
Yeah,
in
but
the
he was
attacking
hurt,
third
right?
area.
So like he was hurt.
Yeah, yeah, they weren't a finish. Not that they weren't finishing their chances; they just couldn't get close enough to the goal to get quality chances. So, if I was in the field, I would take those shots too, because right now, they're not getting anywhere near the final third. So, if you have a chance to, maybe catch Steve Clark off his line or something, you take that. And it's just it's like a perfect storm of mess for Miami right now. The players, the DPs need to elevate the supporting cast of players that they have. But right now, maybe some coaching instruction could be a little bit better. Maybe instead of taking those long shots, hold on to the ball a bit more, or not hold on to the ball a bit more. Maybe cross it across the face of goal. Just trying to get ahead on it instead of looking for that long pass. There are different things you can do as players can do. Uh, just on the field, really. Yeah, plenty of things. I'll compare them to Inter Miami CF. Two, I'll use the game against the Union. Darren Powell told us that since the Union two were playing a high line, they were going to try to get in behind. And what did he do? He started Emerson Rodriguez on one side, and Robbie, he was working his way back from injury at the time, on the other side. And that's exactly what they did. They spammed long balls over the top, but they weren't aimless long balls. They were nice diagonal balls that switched the point of play, and they tried to exploit Philly's back. Not Philly. Who did they play first? It wasn't Philly. It was some other team. The Columbus Crew. They played
Yeah,
Columbus Crew. They were playing a
true.
high line, and Robbie and Emerson started, and so they were switching the point of attack, trying to catch that poor right back. I think we said in the press spots that right back was just being targeted all game, and that's where two of the goals came from.
Yep.
And that's what they did. That was tactical instruction. The players knew what they were doing, and they executed it pretty well. But with Miami, the first team, it feels like they do have some semblance of instruction from Phil, but once they get down a goal, it's just they all lose it, and they don't listen, and their shoulders drop. And Nick Marsman talked about it earlier today in the press conference, about how the goal goes down, and it's the same old, like, are we gonna come back? And it's also a mentality thing, and
So I want
the blame doesn't lie on any one thing, but
I
it's just
want to,
like a
no,
mixture of.
yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that for a sec, because like you look at some of the stats and you kind of like scratch your head with it, if you will, that like clearances in Saturday's game. Miami only had 5 clearances of the ball. Houston had 30. I mean, that's insane to me. The idea that you were peppering the box that much, but none of them were doing anything. What are we missing with that? Because that number stood out to me as an idea of, wait a minute, this team is like trying to be offensive, but enabled to be offensive.
Wrong personnel, honestly. We'll bring up Gonzalo again. Even if Miami were to cross it, he's not a target striker. He's never been. Even Campana, when he's on the field, he's 6'3" and he has got a big body, but he's not very apt at winning headers. In that he does want to play with his back to goal, but more to his feet instead of to his head. So it's just wrong personnel. I don't know if there's any striker on this roster right now that can be a target striker. So even if they want to switch it up tactically, try to. I don't think they can. So that goes back to the players thing. It's like what came first, chicken before the egg. Yeah, it just players can do better, yes, but maybe switching it up tactically can be a bit better. Maybe more tactical instructions, yes, and also the players need to finish. So it's just a mishmash of just miscommunication and players not performing up to the level, and that's what you know what that's why Miami's in this predicament. Even go you can go back to 2019, maybe if 2020, excuse me, and maybe if they didn't lose those 5 straight games, the club wouldn't have taken a different direction in regards to player recruitment. Instead of going for the young up and coming South American players, they went to the Egon Tweety types, and none of this would have happened. So it's just a domino effect, and you see it affecting Miami now. And next season they'll have 3 open DP spots, so they can go crazy and get the proper players with those. So yeah,
Let
it's just a whole mess of yeah, coaching, players need to play better, just personnel predicaments,
let's
etc.
talk. Yeah. Let's talk Revs, because
Yeah,
hopefully, I mean, that's a team that's lost, I think, 4 in a row as well, including Champions
yeah,
League. So something's got to give there. You had Fafa Call, who Fafa is from South Florida, scored 2 goals for Dynamo in
ex strikers player, Fort Lauderdale
ex
strikers.
strikers player. Yes, wonderful. And Fafa's an amazing person. But
Yeah,
now you welcome in another local dude in Josie Altador, who is
yeah,
now on the
Josie.
Revs, and will be coming back down to South Florida. What talk me through this match? What needs to change, and what hope do you have for? I mean, both teams are sort of teetering in where their performance has been. The Reds obviously having a much better season last year than Inter Miami, but not finding the cause this year. Inter Miami needing to find their way. Where does this lie for either team?
Uh, yeah, it's. I'm sure Bruce Arena would know that Miami's emotionally vulnerable right now, and the Revs, even though they're not winning at the moment, they're still very talented. Any given day, any MLS team can beat any MLS team. But I think the Reds will go into this game knowing that Miami, they're not in the best place emotionally, so they'll look to take advantage of that. It's also a 3 o'clock game, so it'll be pretty hot and humid, similar to the LAFC game where LAFC tried to high press, but they just couldn't do it in the heat. Maybe that plays to Miami's advantage. We know that they struggle playing out of the back in that regard. So maybe that they can possess the ball a bit more, create more opportunities that way. The Revs, anytime you have Carlos Hill on the field, that they got a chance of winning. So Miami has to be careful about that. But yeah, there's definitely 3 points up for grabs for Miami. But I think we said that against the Cincinnati that they could win that, but they didn't. And Cincinnati, compared to what the Revs have done, are you know a worse team. So yeah, I think 3 points are up for grabs, but it's going to be hard because the Revs are going to be looking to get back on track. With the Champions League maybe not going their way and them doing poorly in league play. I think they're, if I'm not mistaken, they're out of the tournament now, the Champions League. So, they're going to be focusing on league play now and, of course, the U.S. Open Cup. So they'll definitely look to get back on the right track with, a win in Fort Lauderdale.
So I had 2 points on that I wanted to touch on. I guess I'll start with this is Carlos Gil, and also to him Tommy McNamara and Yajet, that like that sort of uh thing that they're gonna do in the midfield. How does Miami counter that? Because that seems problematic for me on face value.
In regards to like
like
New
like
England
what
hitting
what are
them,
they gonna do? Like who do you throw in that? Because you can't play your stereotypical 4-2-3-1, right? Like you can't
no.
do that against what they have, which leads me to my second question, but I don't want to get there yet. But like you can't throw your stereotypical 4-2-3-1 against that.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think. Hmm. Okay, this could be tricky. The Revs do
Sorry,
like to play
did
quick.
I throw you for a
No, you didn't.
curveball?
No, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think the Revs play quick. They've got really quick players. They've got a guy who's able to find those quick players on the counter.
But that idea,
So,
that idea of having like the two guys that can go with two forward,
hmm,
I
yeah,
for lack of
I
redundancy.
think
But like
yeah,
you
you
can't
play a 4-3-3.
exactly. Okay.
Yeah. You play a 4-3-3 with one holding midfielder, just man marking Carlos Heel. Wingers stay wide to provide that width. Fullbacks, they don't overlap completely in case you lose the ball on the counter, so Miami can keep that back four intact, and then you'll have the midfield, the number six back there to,
Does
so
that
it'll be
bring a
a bit
Breck
of a back five.
Shea, or does that bring like a Breck Shea or like a Gibbs?
Oh,
Like
Brexhay will not be healthy enough for this game. He's going to be
what I'm
out
saying is like
for a couple weeks.
do you play a three? Do you play a three at the back sort of
No,
understanding? You don't.
I think that no, I think that experiment is done and dusted. They tried to work it, but who's going to be that third center back? Quinteros, which Neville doesn't seem to have a lot of trust in him. He's gone with Lowe and McVay as long as they were healthy. Abika hasn't even gotten minutes, so you keep that back four. Yeah, just keep inconsistent, and I play the same starting 11, but a little personnel tweaks. Like I said, I'd start Mo Adams and I'd start Campana instead. Or even if you want to just go pure speed, you start a front three of Robbie, Lassiter, and Robert Taylor.
Which is what I
I
would
mean,
do.
no,
Yeah, that's what I would
yeah,
do.
if you want to go pure speed and get the Revs in behind, you do that, and then you can start a more defensive midfield if that's the case, because you'll have pace over the top. They'll just have to ping a diagonal long ball to switch to play. You can start a Gregory, Mo Adams, and John Mata together. John Mata is definitely a more creative midfielder, so he can find those passes in behind to a Lassiter, Taylor, or Robbie. And that could work to Miami's advantage. Just playing over the top really quickly. MLS, it's not the most technically gifted soccer, but you can definitely outrun your opponents and
So
physically,
my
get the better of them. So,
yeah. So my question off of that to you would be the idea of the diamond, the 4-4-2
hmm.
diamond that Bruce Arena plays. How would you tactically break it down? Because they are true to principle on that. Like it is very early 2000s 4-4-2 diamond in its structure. So how would you want to break that down?
uh, play through the wings and not let their midfielders get settled. Midfielders, they don't want to. They're not wingers. They don't necessarily want to be defending. Not defending, but they don't want to. it's tricky. Like, look at the Union. They play with a similar formation. Most of the time their midfielders are out on the wing defending. So if you get a really tricky winger on Miami side going after Tommy McNamara or even Carlos Hill, who probably isn't a Sebastian Legit. If you get them running at them, they may not have the pace to catch up with them. So you break them down, just keeping the wingers wide. When you have possession at the back, just switching the play point of attack, from side to side. Just trying to keep that back line on their toes, and then if you start Elaine, get him into the box. Don't tell him not to drop. Just stay up top. Or if you
But
start Lassiter, you tell him
Alex,
to play
though,
off the
that's a
shoulder.
huge problem. Like, you can tell him to
Yeah.
do that. Is he gonna do it?
No. Well, no. Statistically, no. I broke it down. He has more. Well, this was after I believe the Austin game or the Cincinnati game. He has more key passes than he did shots on goal at the time. I think it was the post Austin game. He had more key passes than he did shots on goal. So no, he definitely wants to play as more of a creator. So yeah, that's the issue, isn't it? This is where Phil Neville steps in and says, "No, Gonzalo, you're going to do this," but you know we see on the field it never happens. So that's the big question, isn't it?
So let's close with Inter Miami 2 that had a wonderful, very exciting match. Unfortunately, ended in a defeat, but a very exciting match the other day that was postponed until Tuesday. Um, but they fell 3-3 on penalties, but scored a 94th minute game tire, if you will, that led to the penalties. Weren't able to get it done. Initial thoughts on this team? This team looks like that. Like you and I were both excited about this team last year. We both thought that this team was a high scoring, high octane offense that really brought the pace. Inter Miami with only 3 goals in so far this season has been a difficult goal scoring team. Inter Miami 2 has formerly Fort Lauderdale CF has never been that. They've always been high scoring. And so just what your thoughts were. I was excited about their performance. Thought that it took a little longer than normal to get them going. They
Yeah.
didn't really start with the front foot. But as I spoke to Darren Powell, they are very much a team that rides momentum. So 1 begates 2 begates 3. Like, it can move fast for them.
Yeah.
And so what do you feel about how they're moving?
Great, phenomenal. Darren Powell is such a standout guy. He has loads of experience. He's been at the club since its inception, so he knows these academy players coming through up the ladder. You got guys like Logan Baptiste and Tyler Hall who are playing very well at a young age. In a professional, yeah, almost next pros professional, right? In a professional
Yeah.
league, maybe with guys a bit older, but they're holding their own, and it's really fun to see. I think that's the one thing Inter Miami has gotten correct is their academy. They're no Alan Escona, Valencia, Felipe Valencia. They've not put a foot wrong in that regard. The under 17s and under 15s, they're playing super well. So props to Inter Miami for getting what most MLS teams don't necessarily get correct, but their academy. But yeah, Inter Miami too. They're super fun to watch. Defensively, they do give up some goals, yes, but they're young and those clean sheets will come with time. But they did get a clean sheet in their first game, but last season, they won like 4-3, these crazy like multi-goal games. So yeah, they play really entertaining soccer. Darren Powell plays an attacking 4-3-3. The players know what they do. He usually sticks with the 3-man midfield. but it's not, so rigid. It's very fluid. One number eight will go up, the six will maybe take a crack on goal. It's very fluid. He wants his wingers to be proper wingers. He needs them to take on their defenders one on one. Beat them one on one. And as far as the center forward goes, he does like a back to goal, hold up the ball center forward who's also pretty mobile to get in behind as well. We see it with John Hundle and Shandar Borgelin. Borgelin scored two goals, and Romeo Beckham for one. He got three assists that game. So it was just a good performance from those guys all around. I had a lot of fun watching it. I'll plug them a little bit. They do play this weekend. Tickets are only $5. It's a lot of the atmosphere is really cool and it's a lot of fun. And it's the future of the first team. So as fans, you guys should go and check it out. But it's a lot of fun. Darren Powell, he against the Crew, he did go and explain tactically what they did, and it's really interesting to see it. A coach break that down, and we saw it from the press box. He broke it down what they did. So yeah, there's a lot of fun to watch, and I think we've been saying this for almost a year now. Fort Lauderdale CF and Miami 2, just it's definitely must watch TV, and it's the future of Inter Miami. So it's fun to see.
Alex, from a breakdown standpoint, I wanted to talk to you about it because they are a box to box team. It is almost like a frenetic pace. It always goes with them. How do you I guess assess that in terms of what you're going to do in terms of break it down, pass, have an understanding of possession and movement, and go from there?
Yeah, so Inter Miami 2, they love to build out from the back properly. They'll have two center backs split. The fullbacks will hug the touchline, and they'll just recycle possession from there. From the fullbacks to deep line six to one of the number eights in like these triangle patterns, just looking for an opening. Depending on the team, either they'll switch the point of attack or wait until the opposition switches over to one side, and then either a fullback or let's say Abel Caputo or Braxton Najib, they'll spot the winger on the far side, either Ascona or Rodriguez or what have you, trying to get in behind, and they'll switch the point of attack there, and that's how they create those 1v1 situations like we saw against Crew, against Philadelphia Union. It was a bit more difficult because the Union were pressing, so they had to play. You know, they had to play a bit differently. Let's say Harvey Neville was. No, it wasn't Neville. It was Logan Baptiste on as a right back. And I think Romeo Beckham was on the right wing. So the Union would press on this right side, and Baptiste would just shoot a long ball onto the ground into Romeo's feet away from the defender so they can get in behind that way instead of over the top. And it worked on a couple occasions, and Romeo was able to get a couple assists. But it's very measured, possession based style of football. But if they have an opportunity to go long and get behind, they will do that. But there's a lot of good combination play between that midfield three of Braxton Najib, George Acosta, Abel Caputo. They'll just they're very crafty on the ball and they're endless runners, so they'll tackle and create as well. And then usually you have Sean Hundal or Shandar Borgelin starting up top, and they're good at hold up play. And Hundal was a finalist for USL League One Young Player of the Year, so we know how quality he is as far as scoring goes. So it's a very fluid but rigid system. I enjoy watching them a lot. Um, Honestly, we could do a whole show on them, but I think we're running out
We
of
we
time now.
probably
So
will. Yes, we probably will.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, they're just a lot of fun. Yeah, I could talk about Inter Miami too for hours.
They
Honestly,
are
I have
definitely a
such a
fun.
joy covering them.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they are definitely a fun team to watch, and like you said, only $5 tickets for
Mm.
to attend games. And what better than that? It definitely is a fun, exciting, entertaining breath of soccer in South Florida. A lot of kids that have grown up through this area, so uh,
Yeah.
definitely one that we want to talk about, and we will talk, you and I, about more. Sad that Austin wasn't able to join us today, but for
Yeah.
Alex Winley, and for our producer Andres, I am Ian Hess. Thank you for joining us on the Heron Outlet. We will see you back here this time next week.